I'm Marshall Shannon with Ministry Design Concepts. Today in our Preparing to Build series, we're going to talk about frequently asked questions, and today is an overview. Think of it as a medical doctor, family practitioner, when asked by a patient how they should take care of themselves, and the doctor gives an overview. He says, eat right and exercise. He doesn't necessarily go into a full explanation of what that means because of time. And so today, as we go through all 5 phases, we're not going to take time to drill down into every answer. We're simply going to give you an overview. And several things we want to help you with today. Number one, we want you to have an example of the questions you should be asking as you prepare to build, because there are answers that you need to have. Secondly, understand this, that as we give you this information, we can't go into your particular situation during this question and answer time. We can explain some things and expand a little bit on it, but really to give you direct applied answers to your questions, applied to your project, it will take us more time. And so we answer the questions that we're going to show you and give you the brief answer, eat right and exercise. We answer these and teach you in the webinars how to find the detailed application to your particular project and situation. So let's get started with this today, and be sure as we go through this, you can pause the video, scroll down, and write in a comment something that wasn't clear, or you have a follow-up question. Feel free to do that. Don't punch submit, though, until you're ready to stop the video, or the software is going to start the video back from the beginning. And so if that helps you to keep record of any follow-up questions you may have. As you understand, as you're taking these webinars, the video training, 5 phases. We're going to start with the first one with preparation. Our motto is that proper preparation, planning, and processes prevent poor planning. If you don't plan well and prepare well on the front end, you can't spend your money right. And so in the preparation stage, here's 2 different screens full of questions. And as I said, I'm just going to answer them in bullet point form. How do you know if your church is ready to build? Well, number one, you need to make certain that God has directed you to do it. Number 2, concerning your congregation, are they in agreement? Number 3 is what you think you ought to build in alignment with your ministry design. And so as you look at this, the follow-up question to that is, how do you prepare your church to build? Well, the preparation stage involves a number of things. But let me just run down through them and give you the bullet points. You have to correctly evaluate your ministry. Are you healthy and fit, or just healthy? Do you have buy-in from the leadership, the key stakeholders, and the congregation in your church? Is your ministry design whole and where you can articulate it to your design team? Have you looked at your money and made certain that you have money on hand, that you can raise money, and that you can borrow money? Fourthly, are you ready to create and train your teams? Have you done a preliminary bandwidth study, meaning your capacity of your ministry and your capabilities of your ministry? Again, looking at your money, manpower, and ministry space. Have you done a facility audit of your grounds and facilities, your buildings? And so these and a number of other things you're going to need to do. But certainly, ministry evaluation, ministry design intact and whole, and money are 3 key bullet points of eat right and exercise. So what do you do first, second, and third? Well, I think you better get a full ministry audit by having someone like myself, or you can do it yourself, to interview and do a SWOT analysis of every ministry, both of your ministry and your facility, to get an idea of where you are with everything. Then your ministry design had better be intact, where you can clearly articulate your core values, your mission, your vision, and your game plan to the design team, so that your building team, your building committee in-house, your folks, your church family, and the design professionals can understand what your ministry design is. And thirdly, you're not going to build without money. So you better have an idea of what your capabilities are to raise money, borrow money, and what you have on hand or can liquidate to raise and have cash to move ahead. Who will lead your building project? Well, if you're the senior pastor listening to this, ultimately I think you're going to be in charge. But it doesn't mean that you have to chair the building committee or the land search committee or the long-range planning committee or every subcommittee or work group. But you do have to determine, and hopefully you have a process and a game plan that you've been actively developing two types of people in your church: your volunteer workers, laborers, and leaders. If you haven't, you might want to back up the wagon here a little bit, get a hold of me, and let's talk about how you can implement a leadership and volunteer development process where you have all the leaders you'll need to lead your building project. A building project, folks, it really reveals the deficiencies in your church. You'll find the areas where you're weak, undeveloped, underdeveloped. I don't say that necessarily to frighten you. I say it to make you aware of it and to cause you to stop and properly evaluate this while it's a seed thought in your mind. You need a correct ministry audit that looks at every component of your church to help you determine if you're fit or just healthy. And I say fit because it's one thing for the doctor to declare you free of disease. It's another thing for him to declare you fit to climb Mount Everest. How will you create your building committee? Well, you've got to decide how you're going to lead your congregation, and much of this depends upon your church polity, your theology, your current policies and procedures, and your congregation as to how you're going to do it. Is the congregation going to nominate people to be on the building committee, or are you going to have your deacons, elders, or board do this for you, depending upon how your church is structured? You've got questions like that, but you need to be thinking about how are you going to communicate, how are you going to create this building committee, and how are you going to navigate your way through that? Well, your written documentation will give you some direction toward it, most likely. How will you structure your building committee? Well, here's three things. If you're a small, medium, or large church, how the complexity of your structure depends upon the size and scope of your project. So with a large church, you may end up with a building committee, subcommittees, and work groups under those subcommittees. But if you're a medium-sized church, 200 to 400, some say 200 to 500, you may just need a building committee and a couple of subcommittees. If you're a small church, you may just have a building committee of 5 to 7 people who are each delegated responsibility and authority to go research and pull together different aspects and parts of your project. How will you select your building committee? Again, it comes back to the way your church is structured. And so you'll have to look at what's already in writing with your constitution and bylaws, with your former practice, what people expect in your culture of your church. Your parliamentary law gives you all kinds of instruction there, and unless you've set up your own policies and procedures that overrides your parliamentary law, you're required ethically to follow your parliamentary law. And it's there to give you guidelines about how an organization has agreed to work together. So go check all that out. And so as you go to create the building committee, structure it, and select them, aren't you going to look for people who are Christ-like and godly, who know how to put themselves last and Christ first? Aren't you looking for people with the right shape? Rick Warren talks about this in the Purpose-Driven Church. SHAPE is an acronym that stands for your spiritual gifts, your heart, your passions, your abilities, your personality, and your experience. You want to put together people, and we've given you tools in the webinars, that will work well together. If you get the wrong type people together, they'll end up hindering their effectiveness and efficiency. So you want to determine what is the what are you looking for? What's important to you? What will cause your project to be effective and efficient as you go through the building process? How will you train your building committee? Well, I would ask you, what methodologies are you using right now to teach and train people in your church? Would you be wise to use those same methodologies? And so you want to equip them and educate them so that they can feel confident of what the procedures are, what their responsibilities are, what their action steps are, who they answer to, what the chain of command, what the timeline is for getting their work done, how often the committee is going to work, all of these things. You want to get them ready so you don't want it where every man just does that which is right in his own eyes. There needs to be an operational manual for your building committee. Our effort to help you is to help you develop that operational manual before you start this process, ideally, so that you'll know how to create, structure, select, and school your building committee. Now, how will you know how much you can afford? Take what money you have on hand, how much you think you can raise, how much money you think you can borrow, and subtract what you owe, and that will give you the bandwidth of your financial capability. Your capacity to take on a project can be determined by that. Now, a follow-up question to that is, how much of what you can afford should you spend? So you've got to determine, well, you can afford $1, you can afford $1. Should you spend 75 cents of that whole dollar or 99 cents of that dollar? So you've got to determine what fits into your ministry design and your long-range planning as to how much you should invest in your next building project so that you balance out the progress of your ministry overall with your building program, so you don't extend yourself financially and every other way, manpower and other resources, into a building and cripple your ability to fulfill the Great Commission as God has called you. How much do you budget for each part of the project? Well, let me just run down some things and you can piece them together. An architect is, and this is just rule of thumb as I see it in the marketplace, is charging normally 6 to 8%. I've got friends who charge 2.5%. I've got off-the-shelf plans with support of an architect for 3 to 5%, and I've got architects who will provide full services for 6 to 8%, and there are some I've seen who've charged 12%. So does that confuse you sufficiently? Just look at 6 to 8%. For the site work, if you're building on virgin property that's never been developed, there's no water, no utilities, no detention pond, no other buildings on it, maybe farmland or trees on it, pasture and trees and a stream. You've just got a piece of land sitting there that's undeveloped and underdeveloped. What the guys have taught me, and as we've looked at projects, you're going to spend between 30 and 45% of your total project cost to develop that undeveloped or underdeveloped property, because you've got to put in everything. Now, if you've already got buildings on it and everything is sufficient with your utilities and detention and sewage and so forth, you may only spend 10 to 30%. And again, this is a eat right and exercise answer. Applying the due diligence to determine what the land will need to develop it is your job to get the industry professionals in there and to do their work so you can nail it down with a correct estimate of the cost. Now, the structure. A lot of what you can spend on the structure will be determined by how much you have to spend on site work. And site work is an unknown. We guess at it until you get more firm numbers. Then there's FF&E. I would tell you just off the top of my head, 5 to 10% pre-construction fees and services. You got permitting and maybe some other things you have to do like soil testing and borings and some other things you might need to do, surveys and so forth that would come underneath that pre-construction that you're spending before you break ground. That may be management fees and permitting fees. And so you might have 1-2%. On $1 million project, you might set aside $15,000, $20,000 for that. But again, folks, answering this, you've got to go dig into it with your industry professionals. I'm just trying to get you ready so you're thinking this way and even know that this is a part of the equation. Next is contingency. I've used 3 to 5% working with the national church builders. Some of my friends have used 10 to 15%. And again, it all depends on the complexity of the project and the unknowns of the project when you're planning. All right, add them up. You see that you have to really work hard to make certain that you can move ahead with your project. It's why so many projects end up starting and then stalling out is because they didn't know what was coming down the road and how to prepare for it. How much startup money will you need? Well, you've got surveys and master plans and soil testing and borings to do. You may have some other things that will be involved with the government and zoning and some other cost. And so if you've got $1 million project, in order to pay for your master plan and the surveys and some of the other things, you probably better set aside $30,000 to $50,000 just to get to the place where you're ready to raise money and get congregational approval of what you think you ought to build next. Again, if you go into this with no money, you're in trouble. If you have shorted yourself, and so you have to, again, do some homework to see, all right, we want a master plan. How much is this going to cost? $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000? And it all depends on who you're hiring and the scope and the services they're providing to do that. Surveyors, what it's going to cost to survey and do a topo. There's just a lot of variables here. How will you know what to build next? Well, you've got to decide by your values and your ministry and your game plan what's mission critical so that you don't cripple your ministry by failing to provide a tool, ministry space, building space, both inside and outside space, to move your ministry along as God has intended for you to. How do you know what it'll cost? Well, you better have someone who does estimating all the time. I suggest, and for the last 30 years, we've gotten a builder or builders involved on the front end to look at the concept and the initial drawings to be able to give you a ballpark range of what it will cost in your area. Secondly, today, with the new technology architects are using, there's a BIM, it's a building information, and it enables them to design the building so that you can see it in 3D. You can peel back sheetrock and insulation and roofing and flooring and see exactly how many conduits and wires and plumbing and insulation and sticks and bricks, and count them and see exactly how you can count the nails and the screws and the welds that are going on in the building. And when you have that, someone who knows how to estimate, both the builder and someone who's familiar with on an architect's payroll, and you have independent companies who can do cost estimates as well. They'll give you, and you're kind of getting it from the horse's mouth if you get it from the builder. So how do you know what it will cost? Well, you've got to look at the market in your situation and have people that you can trust who have skin in the game who can go and give you a price. How do you know the bandwidth of your property? Well, you've got to have an architect, maybe a civil engineer, to stop and look at all the codes in your zoning, to be able to peel back the layers of regulations and the strength and the setting and the conditions of your property to determine what you can and cannot do. Just because you've got 15 acres doesn't mean you can build on all 15 acres. And you've got to have an industry professional to dig at that, to come back and give you a pretty fair idea if you can build again on that property or how much you can build and pave and play on and so forth. How do you know if you will be allowed to build on your property? Well, you go buy a piece of property. We spend an entire webinar and multiple documents giving you the questions to ask and to verify and confirm certain technical things and ministry things about the property. So you have two areas you have to dig into: the technical, the codes and the technical aspects of your property, and the traffic patterns around it. I mean, you've got all these mechanical problems, technical and mechanical variables about your land. And then there's ministry variables to make certain that what you can do on the property, will it let you carry out your full game plan on that property, or is it going to hinder or restrict you from letting your ministry blossom, grow to its full completeness on that property? So you're going to need you as the ministry architect for your ministry, and an architect who designs and deals with churches, perhaps an engineer like a civil engineer, to dig into this for you. In one of the webinars, we answer this for you. How do you know if you should wait to build? If you've evaluated your ministry design, and your money, and you come up short enough that it's not wise to move forward, then you need to hold off until you get some things corrected, completed, and more than just healthy but fit, so that you can move ahead. How do you avoid the pitfalls and landmines in the construction process? Well, I think you're doing that right now by taking the training from myself and the other industry professionals to gain insight and wisdom and expertise so that you don't make the same mistakes. Here's what I've observed and others have observed, is that churches make the same mistakes. I coached my sons through high school in baseball. And, you know, athletes, when they play the game of baseball, they tend to make the same mistakes. They get into the wrong patterns of hitting, pitching, throwing, running the bases, fielding, and I can spot those weaknesses and those bad patterns as they begin to reveal themselves during practice. And then I have to go correct, and I teach and I train. We practice, and then we use the games as a teaching tool. And so while you're going through this, let me encourage you to use the access we're giving you to myself and the other industry professionals to both teach you and train you, and while you're actually going through this process, to let them use this opportunity as a teaching time, a teaching tool. So how do you avoid the pitfalls and landmines? You take Proverbs and just apply it to your life. You look at the failures of others. 1 Corinthians 10 talks about learning from the mistakes of those that have gone before us. Now, let's move into the planning stage. The planning stage, you're going to ask certain questions. Here's one good one. What will the design team need to know about your ministry priorities? They need to know what your values are. What is most important to you? First, second, and third. For example, very few churches that have a wish list for more facilities have a wallet that will let them get everything on their wish list. And so they may have 4 things on their wish list: worship, education, fellowship, recreation. And they look at their money and realize that they're not prepared with their money or their manpower or some other thing or item in the list. And the first thing they have to have that's mission critical is worship space or the fellowship space. And so they have to be able to tell the architect what is most important to us, because he can design everything on your wish list. But if you can't afford it, are you going to go spend 50% more money than you needed to design something you can't afford? They'll need to know what you have to have built, and then they're going to design you something within your financial capabilities, within your project budget. How do you set your ministry priorities? You set your ministry priorities by what is mission critical. How you determine what is mission critical is to have a well-defined and well-functioning ministry plan where you can evaluate it to see where you're coming up short. What new space do you need to either accommodate the current growth you're experiencing, or what direction is God giving you to build for the future because he's burdened you for a new ministry or a new people group, and you're going to design and build facilities to let you minister to that new people group or to set up and carry out the new ministry. How do you prepare your programming information? Well, I would encourage you to use the support documents we've given to you so that you can go through, sorry about that, guys, so that you can go through and be able to tell them with an Excel spreadsheet, and I've given you an example of one, and another sheet where I fully explained the programming exercise, or tried to, and you give them everything you're doing at every time you're doing it, every place you're doing it, both inside and outside, plus the projected growth, plus your projected growth, plus every class and activity you've got on your property. What do you need to know about your existing property and facilities? What do you need to know about your existing property and facilities? And the answer is as much as you possibly can. So a facility audit will help you get a grasp on the condition and the life cycle, the life expectancy of, say, your heat and air, your roof, your flooring, some of the equipment and furniture and fixtures that are on your property. You don't want to pay full attention to a new building and just forget about caring for your existing facilities and allow that to go uncared for. You have to steward the old and the new. But you need to let them know and give them a set of as-built plans so they can see if you're adding onto connecting an existing building to a new building, their ability to be able to see inside of how the existing building was put together may be very important for them. So they can collaborate, coordinate, and orchestrate the old with the new. What delivery system do you use? Well, you've got 3. And then variables of each of those 3, traditional, design, build, and construction management. Well, it depends on your risk versus reward decision. Do you want to save more money and gain more of the benefits from taking more risk, or would you rather cast all the risk for the cost and other things on the industry professional? And the fit of traditional design, build, or construction management in great deal depends upon what fits your risk versus reward answer. What do you, how do you select your building team? Well, we're talking about your industry professionals here. And I've given you 3 different ways to select your architect, but I've also given you questions to ask. And within the first 2, And so that you can begin to determine, does the shape of your building committee, who the industry professionals are going to be working with, remember the shape, spiritual gifts, heart, their passions, abilities, personality, and experience, match the shape of those that you're hiring. For instance, an architect has a temperament, a personality. They also have abilities. I believe architects have an artistic, architectural DNA. Where left to themselves, they will naturally gravitate toward a certain style church building. You need to determine what that is, and if you're looking for this type building, style building, and they gravitate strongly toward another, you might want to consider that. So if you're hiring an architect to build and make a metal statue out in front of your business or your church, or wouldn't do it for your church, but you understand what I'm saying. Well, you probably wouldn't pick a guy who just worked and his DNA was oils on a canvas. You'd pick a sculptor who was used to working with metal and welding and fabricating, designing, fabricating, and installing that statue. And so as you see this, same thing with an architect. With a builder, you're trying to find the right fit. Who will you need to design and build your new facility? Well, this depends on the delivery system that you select. If you pick traditional, you're going to pick an architect to design it. You're going to select a general contractor through bidding, and then they're going to build your building. If you're going to use an integrated project delivery system where you bring all the players, all the industry professionals, from architect to builder to engineers to suppliers to interior designer, landscape designers, and others, and church consultants like myself, bring them all together up front to start your project during the planning stage, you've got to decide. You're definitely going to need an architect and engineers. You're going to have a builder. Now, whether or not you use an interior designer or pre-construction navigator like myself, or a landscape architect, or some of the other choices you've got, such as a person who both brings this furniture, fixtures, and equipment to you, but also does consulting with it. You've got to decide that. What do you do with your existing facilities? Well, you may retrofit them or repurpose them, but you're still going to use them. But how you use them and when you use them and who uses them may change. How do you prepare to hire the right design and construction team? Well, you've got to be able to explain to them the following things: your future, your funds, your existing facilities and all the documentation with that, and any number of other things that you want them, the focus of your ministry, so that you can help them understand where you're going and what your focus are and what you believe your church family needs next. And you've got to be able to articulate that, because they're going to design and build what they understand you to have said to them about what you need for your ministry. How do you select your architect and builder? You can pick a friend of your personal friend, or someone in your congregation, or a member in your congregation that is an architect. That's one way. Number two, you can interview them. Or number three, you can have them all provide you a test run of what they perceive your project needs next, your church needs next, and have them do some initial drawings for you and work with each one of them a little bit to see how it goes. Picking your builder, there's a whole list of questions that you need to look at with a licensed general contractor, construction manager, to design builder, to build your building. What will the design team expect from you? They'll expect you to be able to articulate very clearly and concisely what your focus is, what your needs are, what your priorities are, what money you have to spend, what your vision for the church is. They're going to expect this from you. Then they're going to expect you to work with them, and as they work with you, for you to make decisions and live by them. What will they require from you? They may require from you a current survey of topographical and boundary survey of your property. They may say that you need to test the soil and some other things that are there. They're going to expect you to meet with them and to put in writing, perhaps, all of your programming needs, both projections of growth and future ministries that you may plan to start. They're going to need full information from you. It's a lot of work to get ready. And if you wait until you've hired them and you want to hold your project up, then don't do any of the preparation stage. Just wait to the planning. So that's why we tell you, go get all this together and then let them help you perfect it. What will the local government require from you? Well, you've got to get your plans permitted and permission. Here in South Carolina, I had to go each time I built on the property and go before the Board of Zoning Appeals to get permission to build, because church doesn't fall within residential, commercial, or industrial. And we had to get permission here. So you need to go find out what they require. But they're zoning, and then they're going to expect you to follow the codes and requirements and regulations they've set up for your property and in your area. What documentation will the design team need? Those surveys, and also your programming, any previous master plans you've had done, or any as-built plans you have of existing property. Any other documentation you have about the area. Give them all the information that you have and let them sort through it, is what I would say. They may shoot me for saying that. But let them sort through it to determine what they need. What surveys will they need? Topo and boundary. What information about your church will they need? Everything we just got through listing. What will the design team need to know about your future, your projected growth, your growth projections? If you're planning on multi-siting, so you're not just going to be on this property but on other property, or that you only want to build one more time on this property, then you're going to relocate. Are you going to sell the church to someone else and let another business or church come in and use it? Are you going to leave a church there and go somewhere else? Are you going to plant churches out of this? They need to understand your DNA, your genetic code, and what your future looks like. What is God's vision for your ministry as you move forward? And be able to articulate that to them. Don't leave any surprises as they go through the design stage. Clearly show them the roadmap to God's future for your ministry. Where are you headed? Every ship needs a port of call so they know where they're going to dock. You need to have a vision, port of call, with mile markers, so to speak. So you know if you're going to this place and this place and this place. I worked for one of the national church builders. We had a small single-engine plane that we flew in, and I learned a lot more about aviation by flying with them as a passenger. And we would fly to a marker and sometimes zigzag our way to a location that might be straight ahead, but we weren't allowed to do it. In your journey, you want to show them the mile markers, the points you're flying to. And you may do some zigs and zags in your ministry, but help them see it. Now to the design phase. Here's some questions that you need to be answering, and I'm going to give you the basic overview of Eat Right and exercise. Who should master plan your property? Well, the architect. You may need engineers in there. Your church family, perhaps a church consultant like myself, a navigator. Maybe an interior designer who is thinking through every jot and tittle of it, a landscape architect, civil engineer. You can do it just with you, pastor, and the architect. I've seen it done all the different ways. What is involved in the master planning? Well, it's taking your future and your current and marrying those together with your affordability to come up with the next steps, 1, 2, 3, and 4, with where you're going to build. The master plan is the full development of your property as you foresee it. So on your master plan, you'll have the next phase, the floor plan elevations of it, where it fits on the site. But you also may have drawn out in blocks where the next 2 or 3 phases will go until you have exhausted the bandwidth of your property. Who should lead the master planning process? Well, your architect should lead it. And then you should let him set up the process for you and work hand in hand with him as a team member. Make him an honorary member of your church during this process. That's surely how I have looked at myself as I've helped churches. I buy into who they are, what they are, where they're going, and how they're going to get there, and who's going with us, as though it were my own church family, and then serve it that way. What will a master plan cost? $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $25,000, depending upon the scope and complexity of your master plan. I've seen strategic master planning that provides much more than just blocks on the site plan, but fully developed floor plans and elevations and even modeling, 3D and otherwise, to give you an idea. So the price. But you can go get a master plan done, and I've seen it done, $7,000, $10,000, $12,000. You're going to have to shop around some. How long will it take? It can take 4 weeks, it can take 4 months, and it can take a year. Depends on how quickly the church works with the architect. It's usually not the professionals who slow you down. It's the church trying to decide things they don't decide very often. Let me tell you, it's not a wheel that's well greased when it comes to preparing and planning to build church buildings. Churches don't do that often enough. Your industry professionals do it every day. So it's usually the church who is having to marinate on decisions or has some uncertainty and unease about making a decision because they don't understand what the end result of living with that decision is. What is produced from the master plan exercise? A floor plan, elevations, a site plan, perhaps an artist rendering, computerized generated 3D presentation with music and voice and narration. And so you have those things coming from it. It should give you a tool to help you deal with your congregation and your fundraising, your pledges, your bank with lending you money, and your local authorities with approving the plan. But by the way, I'd go talk to your local authorities and make sure the architect does on the front end before he ever puts pen to paper to begin to get an idea of what is the posture of your local building authorities towards your church and your expansion. What design decisions will you need to make? Dozens of them. I spent an entire webinar just dealing with walking you through one design decision after another so that you can get prepared. You're going to have to be able to make, slope floor in your auditorium, your sanctuary if you call it that, or flat floor. Stackable padded chairs, folding chairs, theater seats or pews. What are you going to do? And that's just the first of probably what will be hundreds of decisions when broken down. How do you present your project to your congregation? Well, let's say it's Sunday morning. You're going to talk to your church as a whole. Is the architect coming to unveil it? Are you doing it as a senior pastor, as the chairman of the building committee? Do you have a special committee who's just been doing the master plan and doing the packaging of it? Are you going to present it to the whole congregation? Let's say you've got one Sunday morning service. You may have 5 Sunday morning services. Are you going to do it in small groups on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday nights and let them come in? How are you going to do it? Well, you've got to decide the best way to present it so that your church family can see the end product of your master plan. So your master planning, before you get to the construction drawings, which will be the detailed, lengthy plans that all the work that the engineers, the interior designer, the landscape architect, the civil engineer, and the architect is orchestrating all of this, your suppliers, your audiovisual lighting and acoustical engineer, all these people are putting all these pieces together. And you need to have it nailed down and confirmed exactly where that closet's going to go, that window is going to go, that piece of furniture is going to go, that light switch and outlet and fire pool and fire extinguisher and the mirror on the wall is going to go. And you've got all that to think through. And so when you're going through this, your congregation should be apprised because you're utilizing their input for all the ministries to determine how to design it during the schematic and the master planning time, and so that you've got some full solid development before you go into construction drawings, because it's expensive to start making changes after they go into that full detail. Who does the presenting of it? And you have got to decide how you're going to do it, meaning whole church at one time or in small groups using a PowerPoint with a 3D computerized presentation, maybe with background music and a narration, and fly them through the building so they can see it as though we're actually right there. Or if you're just going to unveil artist rendering of it. Pastor, are you going to be the main spokesman or the chairman, or is it going to be a team effort? When do you raise money? Hear this. It's going to take you probably 3 months on average to raise, to decide if you're going to hire a capital stewardship consultant, and then 4 to 6 months for them to get your church and your capital committee together and to go through the process of getting ready to hand out the pledges, and then 3 weeks or so to get the pledges back. So for the whole process, until the time you begin to decide who you're going to interview to hire as a consultant, to the time that you've handed out the pledges and get them back, I've been told you're going to need to reserve between 6 and 9 months, and I would say lean toward 9 months, maybe even 9 months to a year to start to finish. And then, of course, your pledges, your church family, your contributors are going to be giving money for the length that you've stated. Usually it's 3 years. So you want to do this after the master plan is done so you can unveil and show the people what they're giving toward. But to encourage you some, I've had one of my friends, I pastored part of his family. He raised a whole lot of money before he ever had a set of plans because he had articulated his ministry design and the need for it and prepped the people. They bought into it and gave a lot of money before he ever showed them. But that's the exception to the rule. Should you seek outside help from a consultant to do the master plan, to do the fundraising? And the answer probably is yes, because they pay for themselves many times over. But if the code and culture of your congregation is anti-consultants, then you're going to have to direct it in-house with you leading it, senior pastor, and try and figure out how you're going to do that. So you have to determine what the best fit is for your church, but I would encourage you to at least interview it and look into it. When do you seek outside help? As early in the equation as you can. I would get them on board because, again, back to the integrated project delivery system, bringing on the front end during the planning stage, after you've got your in-house committees together, now you're looking at engaging with industry professionals. I would make the capital stewardship consultant, the generosity coach, a part of the discussion on the front end because they have a lot to offer, at least the ones that I know do. How long does the process take? From time you start to consider who you're going to interview to hire to the time you get your pledges back, you better figure on 9 months. What will it cost? Well, I've seen projects done in the last 5 years with 200 people and maybe a giving record of $1,000 per person. So 200 people times $1,000, $200,000 budget was $25,000 to do a capital campaign for a consultant. And I've seen it all the way up to $110,000. Not for a church of 200. I don't pass out. But it really, different companies have different ways that they set up a matrix to charge you. And so you're going to have to dig into it. But it is going to cost you. I wish I could tell you that it's going to be 5% of your target amount that you're going to raise, but I can't do that. The consultants might be able to do that for you. But it's not going to cost you, $3,000 to have a consultant come in and do this. It's going to cost you money. And depending on where you are, who you are, and what you're wanting. How much will you raise? Well, you've got to decide how much money do you have on hand and how much money can you borrow, and it may dictate as you've estimated the cost of what you want to design. You haven't designed it yet, but what you're going to fully design, you've got to subtract what you have on hand and what you're capable of borrowing, and then what your estimated cost of your project is going to be as to how much you have to raise. Usually, a congregation can raise, with the consultant's help, 2 times their annual giving. If you do it in-house, meaning pastor-led, it's 0.6, in other words, 60% of an annual giving, to 1 time your annual giving. So as you can see, the consultant's track record in this country is that they pay for themselves many times over. How do we borrow money? Well, you can do it through bonding, you can do it through commercial, you can do it through a credit agency, you can do it through credit union. There's different ways to go about borrowing the money. So your options are that you've got to go take your financial information, package it, and be able to go in. Sometimes I've used a mortgage broker to get me a loan before, and I've also gone to the bank with our building committee and gone and talked to the bank and gotten money. I've also interviewed and looked at bonding companies, and this is all as a senior pastor. As a builder, we've used all of them, working with the National Church Builders. So you've got some options there. When do you pursue a loan? You need to start pursuing the loan today. I say that to go and develop a relationship and finding out from the individual lenders that you would like to solicit their money, to borrow money from them, to rent their money. You find out what they're going to require. Everyone's probably going to tell you, oh, yeah, I'll be happy to talk to you, Pastor, about your building project and lending you money. We'll be happy to help you. What they mean is they'll be happy to talk with you and get your information to see if you qualify, because they're looking for qualified clients. It doesn't mean that they say, when they say, we'll be happy to help you, that you now are qualified and approved for the loan. You have to jump through a bunch of hoops, and it's an obstacle course, okay, to get through it. How do you keep your design within your budget? You better have a group of people looking to help you. And I would say, and this is not meant to be a stab or punch or give an architect's black eyes. It's meant to look in the multitude of counselors. So you put a lot of eyeballs on your design as it is developed to catch it, because we're all human. Secondly, have people who have skin in the game, means they're building in your area. Look at those plans, and I go into some detail about the different ways to do that in our webinars. But you've got to work with the right people who are good at their job to make certain that what's being designed from the time it's a schematic, just a drawing on the ground, on the paper, just lines on the paper, to begin knowing, well, this is what this is likely going to cost within a range. What are the steps after you master plan your site? Well, you've got fundraising to do. You've got building authorities to talk to, and you have lenders to talk to, and your congregation to talk to. How long will it take for the design team to finish the plans? The full plans may take them beyond, once you've released them to do the construction drawings, may take them 8, 12 weeks. Some guys might do it better, quicker, depending on the workload they're under, how much is in their funnel and their pipeline of work that their staff is doing. Because in an architect, he's got multiple engineers, draftsmen, and some other folks on his payroll, either as W-4s or 1099s, that are doing this work to put it all together. And so they're all working together to get it done. Secondly, if you keep changing your mind during this time, it's only going to lengthen it and may cost you more money. How long will the local building authorities take to review and approve the plans? I have seen them almost approved over the phone. You dropped off the plans, called them back that afternoon, and they said, yeah, we looked at them and looked fine. I've also seen it take a long time. That's why I told you, don't piddle-paddle around here. Go talk to the local authorities, develop a relationship with them. They may be in need of Christ, and you can minister to them while you find out, with hat in hand, what do I need to expect here? You also might talk to your local industry professionals like architects and builders in your area to find out their relationship with the local building authorities. And if you find a guy who's hated, disrespected, unliked, disliked by the local building authorities who are approving and permitting your plans, you might want to reconsider hiring that industry professional. Because it could take a long time for them to work with them. What is your part in working with the local authorities? Little to much. It just depends on your situation. Now to the construction phase. How will you select your builder? If you use the traditional, you're doing it through the bidding. If you're doing design build, you're probably doing it through the interview or through the process where you have 3 or 4 design builders with their architects submit their version of what your vision would look like on your site, and you get an idea of how well you work with them. Or you could pick a guy who's just because of a relational. I used the same architect 5 times, and they've used him 2 or 3 times since I finished pastoring that church. Same architect every time. Well, sometimes churches say, well, my brother-in-law is an architect. Why don't we use him? That may or may not work for you. But when it comes to selecting your builder, you may interview them, you may look at their references, you may have one in your church, or you may have builders come and help with an architect as they go through to design the building. Who oversees the bidding process? The architect does. But you're going to help in that, but he's paid. If you pay him, he will oversee the bidding process if you do the traditional way. If you use construction management pure agency, you've got the bidding process where the project manager in the construction management firm is involved in administrating that. And some architects really appreciate the construction manager taking that off of them. What is needed before you start construction? And so how long will the construction take? 8 months to 16 months, depending upon the complexity and conditions and weather and several other factors in your project. What is needed before you start construction? Plans have to be permitted. Our builder has to be selected. They may have upfront mobilization fees you have to pay, and they got to get mobilized on site with their construction trailer, their dumpster, the porta potty, and other things. What do you need to do during construction? You're going to have to meet with the, if you're using construction management, the project manager. If you're using traditional and design build, your site foreman, construction foreman, and then maybe their project manager in their home office who is dealing with several projects at one time, and you'll have to answer any questions, make any decisions, work with the architect and the builder to deal with change orders and your local building authorities. It's very unlikely that you're just going to be able to walk away from the project during the 8 to 18 months that it's coming out of the ground. You're going to have to assign one person who's a spokesman and contact person for your church with the industry professionals and work through whatever they need to make it happen. They're going to need your support because you're the owner. It's your project. You have to make decisions as you come along. Who will work with the contractors? Well, probably your chairman of your building committee, but at times you may have subcommittee chairmen or even work group foremen, chairmen, who are helping in this. But you've got to decide who's going to work with the contractors. And what is a change order? Change order comes from several things, and I'll answer each one of these things. They come from either the architect making a mistake, the local building authorities finding a problem and making you change something, or the church. So the designers, the government, or the client, the church. What's involved in it is seeing the need for making a change order that may save you money, cost you money, may save you time or cost you time. And that is going to move a door, move a window, change some mistake in the plans. The plans are incomplete or incorrect, or there's a conflict between the plumbing and the electrical, or the ductwork and the HVAC. And so they've got to set up a detailed document, have the architect approve it. The builder probably is generated as he's built the building, and have your signature, the architect's signature, and probably have to have the local building authorities approve it. And it may cost you 10 minutes or it could cost you 10 days or longer to make that change. And so as you look at that, change orders, I've seen projects go through with one change order for the whole project, and then I've seen it where, it's like raindrops. They're just all over the place. Facility management. What is involved in the warranty period? Well, that's where the builder warranties and guarantees the quality of the building for usually 1 year, except for some other things that the state law, whatever state you're in, will require maybe the roofing or the structure of the building to be guaranteed longer than that. But during that warranty period, if your heat and air breaks down, depending on how delivery system you used, depends on who you have to go to have the warranty work done, to repair it. And how long is it? Usually a year. You need to get that in writing. How do you develop a budget to maintain your new facility? Well, you've got to look at the cost, life expectancy, the maintenance requirements of every part of your building and allocate money to pay for the management and maintenance of your building. So if you're going to have to change out filters in your HVAC, then you need to know what those are going to cost and how often you have to change them out, and if you're going to have to hire someone to manage and maintain your HVAC. And so go all the way through your facility and put a budget together. You say, well, we got to clean it, but every month we need to shampoo certain carpets because of the traffic patterns, or re-wax the wood floor in the gym every year, and on you go. You've got to put the pieces together to come up with a complete plan and then set it into your budget so you have adequate money both for the service and the supplies to maintain and care for your property. How do you hire staff to maintain the property? Well, you probably, if you have a large enough facility, are going to need managers over the facility, maintenance people with technical skill to care for the different aspects of the building, and custodial. And if you also have to have security there to care for the building, depending on where, when, and how, I'm not saying you're going to do that, you've got all these parts, and you've got to hire them. So you need to have an understanding operationally of what their job descriptions and authority is, what their requirements are, how much you need them, what you're going to pay them. You basically need to develop an operational manual for your facility management. What positions and duties are needed? I just mentioned a group of them. How do you develop operational procedures? Well, you've got to get some instruction here from maybe your builder or a facility manager who teaches this. We'll have guys with our webinars here where you can listen to those and be able to get direct instruction from a seasoned facility manager, both from a builder's standpoint and from those whose living is caring for facilities. What policies do you set? Well, you've got to decide the do's and don'ts and how to service it, who's going to use your facility. So everything to care for and take care of your property and to maintain it, you've got to write policies that are within your philosophy of ministry and your theology of stewardship and your theology of church. How do you develop maintenance schedules? Well, you're probably going to do multiple schedules. You can use software that is available today, I think, to be able to create that. But you've got to set that up so that the manager knows when the mechanics are to be in there to care for each part. And failure to do that will cost you more money for your facility over the long run. Here's the final question. How, as a church leader, do you protect, prepare, and provide for your congregation as you go through your building program? Well, you want to go get taught, trained, and prepared yourself so that you have looked at each aspect of the building project and have a team build that is caring for each part of this so that you can safely navigate them through it. If I were ever to try and climb a mountain, I'd want a mountain guide that understood everything and had been to the top of that mountain before. So here's the argument for ministry design training, and for a percentage of you listening to this will need a pre-construction navigator like myself or one of my friends to walk you through this, because we've been through it over and over and over again to help you safely navigate your way through. Well, I trust this has been of help to you. I'm Marshall Shannon, your pre-construction navigator with Ministry Design Concepts and Ministry Design Training. You can reach me at this email address or either one of these two phone numbers, and I trust the Lord's blessing on your efforts as you move ahead with your building plans.